Splat! We're going to talk math with the Steve Wyborney, Tim. Woo! I'm so pumped.
Yeah, that's right. I'm pumped too. I can't wait. But first, before we get to Steve, let's talk about the big event that's coming up on February 7th. What is that big event, Scott?
2018. If you're listening to this past, look for the first Wednesday in February. It's Global School Play Day every first Wednesday of every week. Tim, do we change it?
GSPD.
Baby. Yeah, we're excited. Tim, last time I checked, over 48 nations have schools participating in Global School Play Day this year so far. We still have like a little under a month to go, and tens of thousands of kids are being signed up every day to participate in this. It's all about bringing awareness to the importance of unstructured play in a child's life, the impact it has on their development, empathy, compassion, problem solving, imaginative play. Like, it's just all such a beneficial thing. And you can be in college and do this too. You can be in a business and do this too. You don't have to be a kid. In fact, Tim, there was that principal we met who has their whole school custodian and lunch people and parent volunteers. Everybody's playing. It's not just a kid thing.
Totally. And what would you say to somebody that said, that's a really waste of a day, because the kids can go home and play every day, and that's what they should be doing at home. School is not a place for unstructured play. That's the rest of their life.
Well, I mean, part of me wants to be snarky and say, just record yourself for 6 hours and then listen back to yourself for 6 hours and see how interesting it is. No, but I would just say, hey, listen, the value pays off incredibly. And all of us have parents, Tim, that ask, how's my child doing interacting with their peers? How do you really know that when you see them only in that structured environment? To see them in an unstructured environment where they're playing and interacting with their peers give you so much insight, not only to them as a person and showing them that you value their voice and their choice in that day, but also gives you value in how you can reach that child when you're teaching. And that respect goes such an incredible distance to those moments when you need them to be respectful to you by showing just that little respect of giving them that day.
Yeah. And really what we're trying to do is point out the importance of unstructured play that's missing from so many kids' lives. And by giving up a whole school day, giving it up for something as educational as unstructured play, we're sending a loud, clear message to the community that we think this is missing and that we think that kids should be doing this. So check it out, globalschoolplayday.com. And I am ready to hear somebody else do some yakking right now. Steve, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. I'm excited to chat today.
Yeah,
really
thanks for being
the invitation.
We appreciate you accepting the invitation. Thanks for being patient as we're talking about our passion there, Global School Play Day. And for those of you that are not familiar with Steve, he is an author of 14 education books, mostly math books, and that's what we're going to be talking about with him today. He was the Oregon Teacher of the Year. He is a math instruction guru, and he's one of my edu heroes. I love his stuff, and every time I can fit in anything to do with his materials and his ideas for teaching math, when I do teacher trainings, I'm always plugging your stuff, Steve. So I am very thankful for you. You give me material for teacher trainings.
Well, Tim, thank you very much. And I love writing those materials. I love sharing those materials. Where I find it really rewarding is if I hear from teachers in the classroom who've been using those. And sometimes teachers will take pictures of the students' work and send that to me. And I find that very rewarding. So thanks for using that. I just really appreciate that.
Hang on, Steve. I'm going to go run and grab some other teachers at my site right now. They're going to come and tell you because they love your stuff. I mean, Steve, okay, can we talk? What is driving you to create these materials? You're giving them away on your site. They're absolutely full of potential for that mathematical thinking, which I think is so powerful in the way that you've designed a lot of these things, is getting kids thinking mathematically. Why are you doing this? I mean,
okay. I've been asked that question from a lot of people. I've been asked that from college students at conferences. I hear that question fairly often. And in some way, it takes me off guard a little bit because I don't know why I wouldn't do it. If I'm able to create something, build something, and I find that it works really well, it just makes sense to give it away to a lot of people. And I know that there are a lot of different schools of thought on that. But if I can create something and scale that out to a lot of classrooms and a lot of teachers, then I just want to do that. It's very rewarding to me. I enjoy creating materials. I enjoy sharing materials. So I guess I do it for the love of sharing materials with teachers and students and knowing that they're being used.
Now, Steve, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because it's one of those kind of oxymoronic things of that your website is so visual. It's what you see. It's not like a teaching technique or something like that. It's like these materials are concrete, they're images, they're visual, they're PowerPoint presentations. So to explain to people what they are really doesn't do it justice. They need to go to your website, stevewyborney.com, to see it. But since people are listening to the podcast, can you just give a quick rundown of the types of things that they're going to find there?
Absolutely. So there are a lot of materials on there that I've developed in PowerPoint. They're animated. Some of the materials involve motions or changes or adjustments in transparencies, and really they're designed to cause some type of change so that students can see math or see concepts from different perspectives and really have a chance to talk about those ideas or to share their perspectives. Because I think if we show an image and then adjust it, it's astonishing to me what the students see, what they're able to vocalize, what they're able to share. And if we can put an image in front of the students and then just stand back and listen to their ideas, they will stun us because students are absolutely amazing. And I think the visuals on the website just give the students an opportunity to look at something together and share their thinking. And they always amaze me.
I think a theme that I see on your website, this is not trying to pigeonhole what you do, but I think a theme that I see is that the materials that you provide are a starting point for discussion about mathematics with students. Whole class, small group. It's not just, here's a math problem, see if you can solve it. It's like, here is something to really have you think conceptually about math and have kids try to present their thinking and justify and give evidence for what they believe, and a lot of productive discourse between students and so on.
Absolutely. I think a lot of the materials is being launch pads for discussion or for discourse, so the students can see those and have sort of a common launch pad. They're looking at the same image, and I hope that it really does propel discourse, that it propels very rich discourse too, not the kind of discourse where there's a single answer and we're done, but the kind of discourse, which I use a term that I've invented, which I call it the re-invitation. And an invitation might be an invitation into a math question where there's an answer and you're finished. But to me, a really rich question includes a re-invitation. And that just means that you can go back into it again and again and again. It's the kind of question that's rich enough and deep enough that you can revisit it. And in the revisiting, you can look at it from several different angles, from several different vantage points. And so the materials are really designed to do that. They're designed to give students opportunities to express multiple perspectives. And when they do that, not only do they amaze the teacher, they amaze each other. And when students share their ideas, I think that really builds classroom community also, because they get to really wow each other in that process.
Yeah, I think another great piece that you provide and that I love, and I know a lot of teachers that are going there, Steve, is the video explanation of how to use these things. And it's so nice to have that, because just for the fact of feeling confident that you're going down the right direction. And I think of the tiles that you created and how that really has brought a lot of connections and understanding, really, for fractions. And what a huge piece. I mean, I think I keep seeing that out there, is how important fractions and the understanding of fractions are for future math success, especially in high school algebra and things like that. So could you like walk us through like one of the things? You can choose a splats, you can choose your tiles, whatever it is you want, and just kind of like explain what like one activity would be, so people that are listening understand what's actually there.
Okay, sure. Let me take the splat, because that's probably the most well-known piece there. The splat, I just looked up the number of downloads from last year. I launched that last February, and there have been 142,000 lesson downloads, splat lesson downloads.
That's awesome.
I see numbers like that, and it's hard for me to wrap my mind around that. But that is certainly the most well-known strategy that I've used there. And the concept with splat is that that the dots appear, or the parts of the dots in the case of the fraction splat, and really there's only one single change that happens after that moment, is that the splat appears. And so suddenly there's information, and then there's missing information, or part of the information is missing. And how students identify the number of dots or the fraction beneath the splat really opens up a lot of doors, because students might approach that question in many, many different ways. And so they're really looking for a lot of different kinds of entry points. And as students explain their thinking, you hear many different pathways, but they're all looking at the same image. And because of that shared context, they're able to understand each other's ideas. And that's very important, because sometimes students can just tell their ideas or say their ideas without necessarily having an audience really authentically listening. And when we're looking at the same image, and you know that somebody is listening to your ideas with a lot of clarity, then you're explaining them with a lot of clarity. And I think that's an important piece. But the entire premise of splat is based on one single change. And that's all there is to it. You see the dots, and then splat, now you don't see part of them. And so it's meant to be very simple, but it is based on just a single change.
Now with splat, just so our viewers can get an idea of this, how many different puzzles, let's call them puzzles, is that what you would refer to each one as?
You know, I would probably just say questions.
Okay, there you go, questions. How many different questions can they download from beginning to end?
Okay, so I think there are 105 splat lessons that can be downloaded at this point. There's the original splat, there's the fraction splat series, and now there's a nested splat series. And every one of them has probably from 4 to 12 questions in there. So maybe about 700 or 800 different slides.
Oh my goodness. And that's all free, folks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's awesome. And it creates such an amazing conversation with your kids, and the depth of understanding. It's just fantastic, Steve.
Okay. Thank you.
Can we like say that anymore today, Tim? Like, how awesome this is. If people just go there right now.
Yeah, forget the show. No, just kidding. So can we maybe just talk a little bit math instruction then in general with you, and pick your brain on that? Now you're teaching, are you still in the classroom right now?
I'm not. I'm a district math coach. Right now I work with 67 teachers, kindergarten through 12th grade, in 7 different buildings. So
actually that fits my question even better.
Okay.
So without disclosing any personal information, because we don't want to call anybody out on their teaching or anything like that, because every teacher has great things to offer. What do you see?
Are you going after me again, Tim? Is that what's
always? What is something that you're seeing that people are misunderstanding, I want to say, about Common Core, about teaching conceptual math? Because the pendulum has swung over to, you know, let's get the kids to truly understand the concepts of math. Mm-hmm. And I'm afraid that maybe we might have gone too far. Do you see any issues out there? Are people still not getting it? Are they not teaching math conceptually, and they're just so focused on the procedural like we did for so many years that we still need to keep pushing in that direction? Or do we have a little bit of maybe a misunderstanding of balance? Or what are you seeing out there that needs to be fixed in math instruction in general?
Okay, that's a great question. Let me answer several different parts of that. I think that when we stepped into the Common Core, so this is my opinion here, I think that in a lot of cases there was a quick rush in terms of the swing of the pendulum. There was a quick rush to the conceptual, and now I think that we are moving back just a little bit away from that. That's my opinion. I'm not in a lot of locations to see that, but I think there is such great value in focusing on the conceptual understanding. But I also think that we have been working so very hard to help our students gain conceptual understanding. I know teachers are working very, very hard. That one thing that can sometimes be overlooked in math education is that a lot of times we want to work less hard. We want to do less. We want to give the students really good opportunities. so that they can deeply explore the conceptual understanding. And a lot of times the really good opportunities in the classroom come when we've presented a rich, deep question, and then we've given the students a chance to explore that question in depth, to struggle with it, maybe to fail along the way, to really wrestle with that. That is when the conceptual understanding can really develop, when the students are right in the thick of that. But in a lot of cases, we're working so hard to understand what is a relatively new set of standards that we might feel like we need to do an awful lot of the instruction, an awful lot of the explaining, when really what can be highly effective is to have the students doing the explaining, the students producing the language, the students writing, the students talking, the students sharing. And so if we can give our students the reins in terms of letting them produce the language, the talking, the writing, the sharing, the reflecting, letting them do that, then I believe that they're going to gain that conceptual understanding and the procedural fluency and all the other pieces around that. But it's hard. It's really hard as a teacher, especially when the standards have shifted. There are relatively recently, when the standards have shifted, there are new things. There might be new curriculum in play, and we feel like we need to do all of these things and do them well, where sometimes we need to just not do so much and let the students produce the language.
Scott, you got anything? I was going to let you.
Oh
follow
no,
up.
I figured you would follow up. With
No,
that, was your question.
Okay, let's leave a pause in there for editing.
Okay, pause. Tim, edit there.
I hope I answered your question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Usually we can read each other's minds, but that just didn't happen right there.
Good.
Okay. Hey, Steve, that's awesome. I think one of the things that I'm curious from your perspective is when you're presenting a concept and trying to develop that conceptual understanding, is there a point when we as teachers need to be modeling along that process that you see? Is there a point when we should really be jumping in and taking the steps of being the teacher that models, that kind of thinking that we're looking for?
Absolutely. And I'm really glad you asked that as a follow-up question there, because I believe that we need to be crystal clear with our instruction, and we do need to do a lot of modeling along the way. I think our modeling needs to be very clear. And let me come back to that point in just a moment. Also, we do need to be very, very clear. And that is actually one of the reasons that I started writing the animations and the animated questions. But we need to be sure that our modeling doesn't consume the lesson either. There needs to come a time when the students when they're writing, when they're producing language, and really a classroom, I believe, that is filled with production of artifacts. So there is writing, there are posters, there's conversation, so that the student language is in the air and we can detect the student thinking. Sometimes I say that I consider myself to be a formative assessment magnet. I want student thinking popping out all over the place so that I can detect it, so that I can find it, so that I can adapt my instruction based on actual student thinking. But if the classroom is limited to just my voice and only my modeling, then the student thinking won't be popping out all around the room, and I'm not going to be able to adapt the lesson to them. So I think the modeling needs to be crystal clear, but then we need to come to a point where student thinking is abundant, artifacts are being produced, and we're adapting our thinking, or
Excellent.
we're adapting our instruction based on student thinking. And the reason that ties into the animations is really what led me to create those in the first place was I realized in my first couple of years of teaching that I would work really hard, teach a lesson, and then the next day I would come into the classroom and say something like, remember yesterday when we learned about division, or whatever it might be? And the students would look at me, and it was some type of reference, but there might have been some students who weren't there, or they didn't really remember that lesson. And I thought, what is a much more vivid way that experience from yesterday? So what I started to do was, every time I taught a lesson, and I was in the 4th grade at that time, every time I taught a lesson, I would construct an animation that represented the learning from that lesson. And sometimes it was very simple, very brief. It could even be a photo of a student paper. And then the next day, instead of saying something like, remember yesterday when we talked about division, I would say, remember yesterday when we did this. And then I would pull up the animation and show them sort of a little micro example of yesterday's lesson. And they would see that. And then I would launch from that point. What I found out over time was that as I started to gather those mini lessons, that I could start to put them together. So on Thursday, I could say, on Monday, we did this, and I would show a picture and ask questions about it. On Tuesday, we did this. Here's another animation to represent that lesson. On Wednesday, we did this. Here's an animation to represent that lesson. And I would start asking questions about the animations that reference the lessons, and then I could start combining the lesson concepts in a lot of different ways. So I started like capturing a body of not just animations, but animations that actually referenced our specific classroom experience. And I would show those. And I found that to be very powerful. So that was a little bit of modeling of the student thinking from the day before. And I found it to be highly effective. And any teacher can do that today. Just take out your cell phone and snap a photo of student work and start your lesson by showing what a student did the day before. And it will make it very clear what happened the day before. It will give you a great launch pad, and it will honor a student all at once.
That's a great idea. Hey, Steve, just in wrapping things up here, real quick, two-part question for you. I know that we have many Steve Wyborney fans out there that are listening right now, and perhaps some of them don't know about your latest release on your website, the materials that you just released. Can you talk about those and just give a brief description of what those are so people might be interested in going and checking that out? And then secondly, do you have anything you're working on right now that you can give our audience a little preview of that might be coming down the pipe?
Absolutely. So I just released Cube Conversations. They're 80 animated downloadable lessons. They range from kindergarten all the way up through high school. You could use them at just really any grade level. What happens in the Cube Conversations lesson is a structure of cubes appears. You can ask the students, how do you see this? And then when you click, it will change the colors of the cubes to show a different way of seeing it. When you click, it will change the colors again to model or demonstrate a different way that it could be seen. When you click a third time, it will change again, and then it will invite the students to describe what they see. On the second slide, there's a different structure and an invitation to ask the students how they see it. The third slide, there's another structure and another invitation. And I think the students will just amaze you with the way they see these structures. So that's the one that was just released. It's called Cube Conversations. 80 lessons. It's completely free. I invite you to take it and use it in your classroom. As far as a sneak peek of what's coming up, that's a fun question. So I have a set coming out in the next month or so that's called Splat in Motion, and it's based on the original Splat series. But what happens when you click, the splats appear, and the students can identify how many dots are underneath each of the splats. But then there's an additional click, and when you click again, one or more of the dots travel out from underneath one of the splats beneath the other splat. And so the students are working with another factor of change in that case. And what's really interesting about that is that on the next click, the students get to see it again, but with a transparency feature. So they actually see under the splat the entire time that the dot moves. And it's really fascinating to see student responses to that. So that's a sneak peek. I've not widely shared that. This is the first time I'm broadcasting that. That's called Splat in Motion.
Oh, I can't wait.
Exclusive. Okay. All right, Steve. Well, we're going to switch gears with you right now, and we're going to play a little game with you, if you don't mind, like we do with all of our guests. And
okay. Well, actually, if you don't mind my interrupting, I think that we should play a game, but I'd love to turn the tables on you and ask you questions this time.
Wait, what? Are you serious?
I know this is a twist. So every time there's an episode of the Bedley Brothers, you always ask the guests the questions. And this time I would like to turn it around and ask you 3 questions. Are you game for this?
Okay, bring it on, man.
Okay, we are ready. So we're calling our little game today, Turning the Tables on the Bedley Brothers. And so Steve, tell our audience who Tim and Scott will be playing for today. So Scott and Tim, you will be competing for Colleen Kyers. She's a 5th grade teacher in Syracuse, New York. If you're able to answer 2 out of 3 questions correctly, Colleen will be awarded a free download of an album by the ridiculously popular edgy rock band Rockin' the Standards.
Woo!
Woo!
Pressure's
Okay,
on.
so here we go.
I think I
First
just lost my job, Tim.
So as you know, I'm from Oregon, and I am in the part of Oregon that's in the Mountain Time Zone. Several people say, I didn't realize that any part of Oregon was in the Mountain Time Zone. Well, that's the part that I live in. So your first question category is time for time zones. And your question is, what U.S. state that is on the Atlantic Ocean is in two time zones? Two different time zones can be found on this state that borders the Atlantic Ocean.
We don't get choices?
Oh, choices.
No, you don't have to give us choices if you don't want, but okay, Scott, I'm thinking either New York, Pennsylvania. No, New York, I don't think, because I've been to Buffalo. Could be Florida.
I mean, I would tend to go with either Florida
Virginia?
or Maine. That just would be my
Maine,
my
I think, is good too far over there.
Well, time zones are political, Tim. You know this, right?
True. And maybe it's like a different time zone that's past the East time zone. I don't know. Oh my goodness.
I will tell you it is the Eastern and the Central time zone.
Ooh.
Okay. There's a hint. Eastern and Central. I'm tending towards Pennsylvania.
For some reason, I feel like it's not. I'm visualizing Virginia like reaching way in there, that finger of Virginia.
Yeah. That's
But
true.
I could be absolutely wrong on that. Let's go with you, Tim. Let's go with your answer, because then you can be wrong and I don't have to.
Okay, we're gonna guess Pennsylvania.
It's actually Florida.
Oh,
I said Florida. Okay.
Your first instinct was absolutely right there. So there could be a person in Oregon and a person in Florida, and their clocks could be only 1 hour different there. So
That's crazy. Wow.
okay, so the pressure is on. Question number 2.
oh no. Oh my gosh.
Your next category is meeting. This is fun.
Should we start apologizing to Colleen right now?
So your second question, the category is meeting time. Meeting time. And this has to do with the NCTM annual meeting, National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. So between the years 2016 and 2019, there will have been 4 annual meetings in 4 different cities. 3 of the cities begin with San, and 1 does not. So can you name the city between last year and 2 years from now where there will be the NCTM annual conference where it does not begin with San?
Oh, no.
Okay, are you ready for choices?
Okay.
Yes, please. Choices.
Okay, Washington, D.C., Portland, Oregon, or Sacramento, California?
Washington, D.C. It's got to be D.C.
It is Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Woo!
I think that's where it is this year, isn't it? Coming up?
I'm gonna
It
go
is. It's
with.
coming up
I'm
this
gonna
year.
go with Washington D.C.
Scott, that's amazing.
It is. It's Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Very nice. Okay, and here's your last question. So for all the marbles here, this is a laundry list of math strategies. Category, a laundry list of math strategies. What math strategy popularized by Chris Shore and Andrew Stidell and probably many others involves using string and clothespins?
Number line.
It is number line. It's clothesline math. It uses a number line with string and clothespins. And I need the sound effects here to let everyone know that you have won. You correctly answered 2 out of 3. And thank you for letting me turn the tables on the Bedley brothers.
I'm gonna go with number line.
It is the number line on clothesline math. There's
There
a
must be
website
a
you can
delay
look up
here.
clothesline math too. So it's a great strategy. If you haven't used clothesline math, try that strategy in your classroom. It's a really, really good strategy.
Definitely.
Awesome.
So how'd we do there, Steve?
So, hey, great job, Tim and Scott. You got 2 out of 3 correct, and that's good enough to be a winner. Congratulations. You've won absolutely nothing. But Colleen just won a free download of Rockin' the Standards album, educational rock and roll music for 2nd through 6th graders.
Wow. I feel a lot more empathy towards our guests right now, Tim.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Some lucky guesses in there. But
Steve, that was fun. Thanks for doing that to us.
Absolutely. Thanks for letting me turn the tables on you.
that was definitely cool. All right, Steve, why don't you let our listeners know how they can follow up? I've already mentioned stevewyborney.com. Maybe you can spell that for our listeners in case they're just listening at the moment and don't have access to see that, and other ways that they can connect with you.
Absolutely. So the two best ways are to contact me at my blog, stevewyborney.com. So Steve and then Wyborney is Wyborney. And then I'm also on Twitter at Steve Wyborney. So same spelling, Wyborney. Send me a tweet. I'd love to meet you and send you resources.
Yeah, and you know what? Steve will interact with you. He actually talks to us. So he's one of the most humble celebrities you'll ever meet. So it's great. So Scott, remind our listeners before we sign off what we want them to do in the next couple of weeks here.
Please give your kids a chance to join the 188,000 plus kids that will be playing. Tim, we're hoping to get up to 500,000 kids playing globally around the world on February 7th, 2018, or the first Wednesday of February, anytime, forever into the future, until whenever.
That's right. And don't forget
every
about
time zone too.
in every time zone. Don't forget about Edu Presenters. Go sign up, and if you need a presenter for your educational event, you can go find some awesome presenters there at edupresenters.com. And thank you everybody for watching. We'd appreciate any sort of feedback that you like to give us, positive, constructive. We're always trying to do the best job we can on our show here. And thanks again, Steve, for joining us. And thanks for watching and listening.
Mom and Dad.
Mom and Dad.